Again, and this is part of a series of educational articles on the Friesian horse inspection, which is also known as the Keuring. And I'm doing this on behalf of one of the local fauna chapters. This is just some information based on classes and experience I've had, and I strongly encourage you to try to attend a clinic provided by one of your local chapters to learn a whole lot more than I can possibly describe to you. So today's is on judging the trot. This is an interesting gait for me because I feel like it's probably one of the most misunderstood things that people judge with the Friesian horses. They don't quite understand how it's being judged. And I've seen it lead to poor training practices and then poor outcomes and upset people because they don't know what's being judged. So hopefully I can help a little bit with that. The trot, this is the linear score sheet. It's the sheet that the judges use to score a horse. This area between these double lines here is the breeding standard. Anything in the shaded area, in this case over here, these are considered much better than the standard. And the trot now is judged in 4 areas, from short to long, weak to powerful, etc. When they're talking about short or long, they're talking about the roominess of the trot, and they really want the trot to be a horizontal movement, not up, down, but a horizontal movement, nice roominess. You think of that when you think of dressage somewhat. I've seen a lot of Keurings where the judge will say, this horse goes up and down but goes nowhere. And what they mean is they want to see room in the trot no matter how high the knees go. The next thing, the power of the trot. The power of the trot, they're really talking about the takeoff and the degree to which the hind leg moves up under the body to then push the horse forward with impulsion. And again, I want to emphasize that what they're looking at the hind legs and how they reach up under and provide impulsion for the front. They basically say if the rear works, the front takes care of itself. So they do a lot of work on the rear of the horse in training, and this is what they judge. They judge the rear and the power from the back, not the front. The next thing, whether or not it's a balanced trot, that's the degree to which the horse moves with self-carriage and even steps. So if you get a horse that's got some suspension, nice and light on its feet, very balanced, they will reward that. And the last thing here is suppleness, and that's sort of the elasticity with which the horse is moving. So let me show you a couple of examples of horses here. Again, these are mine. We'll start with this is the mare that the one that's a little smaller, more the harness horse type. And when I was telling you about the conformation, I was saying that this mare is the one that was built more downhill with a shorter forearm, and that by its geometry, you would think that she would have a less of a roomy movement. She wouldn't be able to really reach out and do very well in the trot. So, and we did see a little bit of that in the walk. Let's see how her trot goes. So she's having a little hard time getting started here. I was shaking when I took the video, so it's shaky. Sorry about that. It turns out she has a pretty nice trot there. She's got good movement from the rear. She's reaching up under the rear. You can really see her reach with those hind legs, which is allowing the front to come up as well. So this is not what you would have expected, given her geometry, given the length of her front legs, but she's doing a nice job. See how she's reaching up under there? And that allows her to reach in the front as well. So she's got a nice balanced, elastic trot. A nice trot. Nice controlled, balanced trot with a lot of power because it's coming from the rear. So I like this. I happen to like her trot very much. She's a really good mover. So that's the mare that kind of probably surprised me. Look at this too. This is an interesting thing. They want, if you take a line on the vertical, they want this back leg to be coming up under the body. The back leg starts here and then moves back, and then comes and starts here and moves back. That is because they call that running like a chicken. They don't want the legs behind. They want the legs up under. They also want these legs parallel. And she's doing that. So she's got a nice movement. And she should score well on her trot. Now let's look at the other horse. Now back when this horse was judged in 2003, they didn't judge him on 4 things on the trot. They actually only judged on 1. So they're much more picky about the trot now with its elasticity, suppleness, balance, all those things. Back then they were just mostly looking for correctness of the trot. So we'll take a look at her now. From her geometry, you would expect her to have a nice reach in her trot and hopefully a little more power. She had a lot of power in the walk. Well, as you can see, she does have a nice balanced trot. It's correct trot. She's reaching up under with the back, but it's not necessarily translating to the front. She doesn't have a big trot. She's not really using her rear as much to bring her forward. There's a question about whether or not that could have been helped with a little different training regimen. She has, remember, her walk was quite good. There, she's not reaching quite as much there, but the runner's trying to get it out of her. And there she starts to reach, and that was a good pass. So not a big trot on this mare, which is, the other one had a better trot than you would expect, and this one didn't have as good a trot as you'd expect. So that's kind of interesting. So let's see what their scores were. Here's the first mare, and the trot's here. So she did, the trot's these 4 things here. So she did score well. Everything was above the breed standard, and then she had a very powerful trot. And that is what we saw with that mare. And let's look at the other one now. Again, this is in Dutch. Only one line, draf is trot, and this is a tactful or a proper trot. It's basically what they're saying here. And they felt that it was proper. There's only one line here. It's this one. And she scored well on it. She well above the breed standard on this one thing. Now, if you were to judge her according to these standards, the new standards, how would she do? Well, she had a nice long trot. She had good reach. And it was correct. It was a correct walk, trot, but I would definitely not rate her very strong here in the power. And they didn't happen to have that on the score sheet, so she wasn't rated on it. But I would have rated her low there. But balance and suppleness was quite good. So of 3 of the 4 things she did well, and here with the correctness of this, she did very well. So she did well with what she was rated on. Now, the next lesson I'm going to do is I'm going to talk a little bit about how these scores then culminate in a final premium and sort of what you do with that information. But the lesson I would like you to take away from this one on the trot is that the judges are judging the horse on many things in the trot. Yes, Friesians have nice knee action, but that's not what they're judging. That's really not. They're judging what's happening in the rear and how the horse uses the rear end to move them forward and yet still keep balance, suppleness, elasticity. And so when you train, and I will have a future one on training the horse, you have to remember that. If you're just training them to go up and down high, you're actually hurting the horse so far as it scores. So I'll talk about that later. Okay, that's it for now.